Hey everyone, Tim here. So it's Tuesday. It's 9 days away from the start of Worlds, and I'm getting really antsy waiting. I'm, I don't know. I'm feeling really impatient. I feel like I've written enough stuff at this point. I probably have a few things that I'll still create, and I've got a bunch of stuff that's done but hasn't come out yet. But I'm just, I'm, I'm waiting to watch the games. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this way. It's been a long time off, and I have a bit of a unique problem too. Is that I don't have any teams that I'm really waiting to cheer for. I'm just excited about the event in general. So I know as a content creator, my content itself is supposed to be unbiased. I shouldn't really play favorites, but I do have some favorite teams. My problem is that my favorite teams are not at Worlds. And it's not like I'm a fan of bad teams that, just never had a chance, really. I mean, you could argue it, but I'll go through who my favorite teams are to explain why. So in North America, I've been a fan of Team Liquid since back when they were Curse. So I mean, at some points in the season, you thought maybe they got a chance. This is their year, and they just imploded, and it was terrible. In EU, fan of Fnatic, very similar story. Like they're kind of sort of almost there, but not really. It was not their year. In Korea, I'm a KT Rolster fan. Well, they got one game away. That really sucked. And I'm an AHQ fan, so I guess that one kind of worked out for me, but I think they're not very good this year, so that's not fun. And in the LPL, I am a fan of Snake. Guess what? They played 10 games in one day, and they lost the last one, and that was enough to make it so they couldn't get to Worlds. So I'm in this, like, just outside of Worlds tier of all the teams that I like, pretty much. But I have my solution to that kind of going into Worlds and being able to engage with the games and have somebody that I'm cheering for and get excited about is I've got a lot of different players that I'm also a fan of in different ways and for different reasons. And so what I want to do is I want to go through some of the players that I'm going to be cheering for at Worlds just to give you kind of why I like some of these other players. I want to start at support. I'm going to do one from each position. And this player is kind of one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this video, and that's that I want to talk about Cloud9's support, Smoothie. I'm a huge Smoothie fan, and part of the reason for that is because about a year ago, Team Liquid signed him to be their new support, replacing Xpecial at the time, I believe. I hope I don't have that wrong. That would be embarrassing, but they brought in Smoothie, and so I was like, okay, this is going to be kind of cool. I don't know too much about this guy, so I went back and I basically watched all of his Challenger games with Team Dragon Knights just to see kind of what kind of player was he and would this work. Would it be an improvement for the team? And so I felt like I got kind of a connection with him. And then watching him with Cloud9 when, he played, I think, one game with Liquid, or maybe it was two, and then he was benched in favor of Matt when they did kind of the whole shake-up with the Team Liquid Academy and their 10-man roster kind of deal. So so Smoothie was kind of back into Challenger, and then he came into Cloud9, and he was competing with Bunny Fufu, and he grabbed his spot. And watching him develop with Cloud9 has been so great because I can see back when I was kind of doing this scouting on him, and I wrote this article on my own blog. And at the time when I wrote about him, I said, okay, he's low mistake. He doesn't go out there and kind of cost his team much. So he's nice and solid and makes good decisions. But his shortcoming is that he's not super proactive. He's not going to go out there and take risks and make plays and engage fights. Even when he plays someone like Alistar, he doesn't really go out there and kind of throw himself into things and to make something happen for his team. He's very reserved. He wants to be kind of the secondary engager, which is a bit of a shortcoming. So watching him with Cloud9, you see a lot of the same things, except that he's grown into himself a lot more. I think he's got a lot more confidence. You watch him on someone like Braum, and he's really good still at kind of being the secondary actor. So someone else engages the team fight into Cloud9, and Smoothie will be the counter engager. He's still not a huge primary playmaker. If you compare his Bard to Bunny Fufu's Bard, for example, I think you'll see some differences there in how willing each one is to or was, I guess, in Bunny Fufu's sense, to go out and make something happen. Smoothie still isn't the kind of go out and seize the day kind of a player, but he's built a little more of that, and he's gotten just so much more refined and better at the other elements of this game, and also added in this ability to help Sneaky become a much better laner when playing with Smoothie, which is something we touched on statistically kind of midway through the split, and some people called, I think I was posting on about it on Twitter and things like that. So So that's why I'm kind of cheering for Smoothie individually at Worlds. Is I've really enjoyed seeing this growth, and I still don't think he's not the style of player that is going to attract a ton of fans because he's not flashy. By nature, not being a primary playmaker, he's not going to kind of be the Mata or the Aframu or this kind of person who people really love to get behind. But if you watch him and you appreciate what the style of player he is and what he does for his team, it's just, I don't know, it's very impressive to me. I want to talk about a couple of carries together now. I'm also going to be individually cheering for both Deft and Maple. So just the big picture of those two is I think both of them are super good players, and I just enjoy watching them play, honestly. Deft, I think it starts in lane. There are a lot of bot lanes at Worlds this year that seem to be really good at just crushing 2v2 matchups, which is going to be really exciting to watch given that we're in a standard lanes meta. But Deft and Mako, I think, maybe do it more than anyone else, where they just go out and they just slaughter every 2v2. Something I've noticed about them that I'm really impressed by is that they seem to have a really good idea of when to use that lane win to go after kills and try to snowball themselves that way, or when they, if they were shoving their lane, sometimes they'll just not spend so much time damaging the other champions, and they'll invest in the tower more and try to chip it down over time. They know which one to do in which game, depends on the circumstance and the champions and the matchups. But I think that's really smart and something I've really appreciated watching them do. And Deft also, I think the thing you have to talk about with him is his positioning in team fights. He knows how to get all of his damage out, but he doesn't do it by being, jumping into the middle of the fight and having his team give him peel and give him shields and protection and so on. He seems like he's always around the edge of the kind of the threat zone of the enemy team. He's got really good auto spacing, if you will, just to throw that one out there. But it's been, just watching him play is so much fun to watch him kind of dance around the edges, and you don't even notice that he's not even getting attacked, but he's hitting everybody he can. There are a lot of really good team fighting AD carries, but I think he plays that balance better without putting himself into a risk area, which is a little surprising given kind of the reputation of the LPL and the fight happiness of the LPL. It's something you would expect that if you're going by stereotypes, that the AD carry in China would be more likely to throw himself into the fight and kind of make things happen and be aggressive. And that the Korean, the AD carry back in Korea, someone like Bang would be the more conservative, player on the edges of the fight kind of a player. But, in those two players' case, it's a little more reversed. Or when I watch Bang, I see him kind of step up a little more. So, that might just be how I'm reading the two players, and you might disagree, but that's what I enjoy watching about Deft. For Maple's part, every time I watch him, it seems like he played a lot of Taliyah towards the end of the split and in the playoffs, and I don't know if it's just me watching Taliyah differently when Maple plays, but he lands his damage combos just time after time, in lane, in fights, setting up picks. I don't think I see any other Taliyah player do that nearly as well as Maple does, and it just stands out to me over and over again whenever I watch a VOD of Maple playing Taliyah, and that's one of the things. Like I've followed Maple a little bit going back to last year and so on, but when I'm kind of re-immersing myself in LMS this year in my Worlds prep, that's what has stood out a lot for me about Maple, and seeing him, I think that embodies kind of who he is as a champion, or as a player rather, that he can take a roaming champion like Taliyah and turn it into a carry by landing all his skills, getting all his damage out, and playing it in a bit of a different way than most other people do. So I'm hoping that with Taliyah kind of taking looks like a little bit of a back seat in the meta after some nerfs, hoping we'll get to see Maple do similar things in other champions, put his own unique twist on them, and really show up, because if Flash Wolves are going to do well, it's going to have to be Maple doing a lot of it, I think. In the jungle, I'm going to be cheering for Clearlove. This is another case of a star that I'm really excited to watch, and not just because Clearlove is such a good player, and I hope he does well. I'm a big fan of kind of legacies and players, really good players building on their legacies that way. So Clearlove, I think, is one of those types of players that I kind of gravitate towards, because there's so much great storytelling you can do about them, and they can kind of, the ability to follow a dynasty and see it evolve, be replaced by other ones as we go. But I think specifically with Clear Love at these worlds and in the group stage, I'm really excited to see how he plays the jungle matchups against some of the other junglers in his group. One of the things Clear Love is really good at is counter ganking, especially knowing the way his bottom lane plays, that they tend to shove the wave a lot, they tend to win the 2v2s a lot, which means that they put themselves sometimes in a vulnerable position, and so he's really good at counter ganking and knowing that the enemy jungler is going to be drawn over there. And he's got a couple of junglers in his group who love to gank early, so watching him try to, follow the movements of those two players and to see whether they can get around him or who's going to adjust to whom and all of that, I think that's going to be a really fun interplay. So that's why I'm going to be cheering for Clear Love and hoping to see some really fun things from him. In the top lane, finally, the player I'm cheering for is going to be Hauntzer from TSM, which I haven't really talked about Hauntzer much, it seems like, for quite a while. I don't think I've written anything about TSM in a while, but maybe the last thing I wrote was when I was justifying my NALCS awards votes for the all NAS teams, and I was explaining why I picked Impact over Hauntzer to be the first team top laner. And obviously a majority of people disagreed with me, but I felt I had good reasons at the time, and it wasn't because I didn't think Hauntzer is a great player. I do. I saw things in Impact that I hadn't seen in Hauntzer, and I think the playoff performances of Impact and Hauntzer justified my opinion that both of those players are really good at different things, but Impact, I think, had a little more to give. Hauntzer, for his part, I'm really excited to watch him at Worlds because his strengths are so... I think they fit really well in this meta where the top lane is often the secondary contributor. He's off doing his thing. He's kind of on an island. Bottom lane is more of a focus as like a powerhouse portion of the team comp. And Hauntzer gets to be up in top lane. He's probably not going to get a lot of resources. He's probably not going to get a lot of gank attention. But he's going to kind of play to his role. He's going to do his job. And whether that means, he's playing Shen and jumping into the bottom lane to help on things, or, being just a pure team fighter, or whatever he's going to be doing. I think these are all things that Hauntzer is really good at, playing with little resources, playing to a role, knowing what his job is. And also the group that he's been drawn into, I think the competition he's up against is a good opportunity for him to show himself. He's not up against a bunch of dominating laners who are going to, try to do to him what Impact did to him in the NALCS finals, try to win lane against him and kind of reduce his influence that way. Which is not to say that I think Hauntzer played poorly in the finals. I think he did lose lanes. He was in losing matchups, so it wasn't really a big deal. But I think he still stepped up well in the mid game and did his job there. But when he is laning against these other players in the group stage, which I believe the top laners he's up against are Cuvée, Looper, and Wonder, and I'm not as familiar with Looper and like his ability in lane, but I know for Cuvée and for Wonder, Cuvée is a pretty good laner. Wonder's an okay laner, but he is more about later in the game, and I think none of these players are the kind of player that's going to come out there and just kind of pound Hauntzer's face in 1v1. So that'll give Hauntzer the chance to to express himself in lane and then reach kind of the more important part of the game for him to have an impact, which is kind of a little later as the team comp comes into its own and the team starts working as a unit. So I'm excited to see what Hauntzer can do in that setting. I think he's going to... I think he's been put into a place where he has to kind of win some of the momentum back onto his side as the best North American top laner, which, he had this big surge of confidence in him at the end of the regular season, and he won the first NA team top laner, and then Impact kind of stole his thunder with everything that Impact did in the postseason. So I think Hauntzer can go out there and kind of try to reclaim some of that momentum for himself individually, and I'd really like to see him do it. So to wrap that up, the team of individuals that I'm kind of hoping to cheer for at Worlds, Hauntzer in the top lane, Clear Love in jungle, Maple in mid lane, Deft at AD carry, Smoothie at support. And for various reasons, I just want to see all of these players do well. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch. So if you've got players that you're individually cheering for aside from cheering for entire teams. I'd love to hear about it. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching.